Welcome to Robotics and Automation News webinars, where you can be part of a global event without leaving your home or office. Attend our live webinars and communicate directly with influential professionals in your industry.
Hello, my name is Abdul Montakim. I'm editor of Robotics and Automation News.com. In this interview, I speak to Jason Spera, the co-founder and CEO of Aegis Software, the maker of FactoryLogix, a modular suite of applications for the modern digital factory or manufacturing operation. Jason provides insights into how the company's software works to make manufacturing processes better integrated and more productive. He also offers his overview of how the manufacturing sector itself has been transformed as a result of digitalisation and Industry 4.0.
My name is Jason Spera. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Aegis Software. And what Aegis does is we're a provider of what's most commonly called manufacturing operations management software. So digital platform for providing the core capabilities needed to run all of operations, extending from receiving of materials, some warehouse management, shop floor material control, the execution of the process itself, quality management, and then shipment of the product out the door. And our solution is also somewhat uniquely built upon an IIoT platform. So the automation layer connectivity, the data acquisition from all the factory assets and robots and automation and so forth, is all merged into the digital platform we have. And then one other unique advantage we have is that we have a very rich front end to the system in that we connect to the design platforms, whether they be electronic design or mechanical designs, and bring the design data in order to drive that MOM platform. So many would call that the completion of the digital thread of the original idea to the design and out to execution and production. So we offer a very large digital platform to provide all those functions for a manufacturer in the discrete manufacturing spaces. I should have been specific about that. Worldwide, we have direct staff and offices in all the major manufacturing markets of the world. And currently, there's over 2,200 manufacturing sites using some form of Aegis software around the planet.
Okay, thank you very much for that great introduction. We tend to, robotics and automation news.com as a website has always been very interested in manufacturing, particularly the robots in manufacturing, the industrial robotic arms, as well as other automated hardware. Software isn't something, because of, we're a small website, we have a limited number of staff, and software is something that we haven't really done enough about. So, my apologies in advance if I'm not familiar or ask very simple questions about software. But to me, what you've described sounds very complex to develop a software. Manufacturing is complex, so to produce a piece of software that encompasses as many of the aspects of manufacturing as you have described seems to have been, quite a challenge to begin with and achievement now. What's been the trajectory or history, or brief history of Aegis? I know we've talked to Aegis before, but we haven't spoken to you before. What's your knowledge of Aegis?
Well, it's actually an interesting question that I appreciate because I was a manufacturing engineer in a defense electronics plant. I'm a mechanical engineer by education, but I went into manufacturing engineering. And in that day, around 1995, I thought that the manual way we were doing things in production to support production was probably not the best way to do it. Manually color coding assembly prints to get to the shop floor to support operators and how to assemble the products. Sometimes manually programming assembly robots. And it all seemed to me that if we could just transform the design data digitally into what was needed for production, it would be a much more efficient way to go about it. And to your comment, I agree. It's been a long road to build a system of this magnitude. And I also, the robots and what you typically, the automation layer and the robots that you typically focus on is perhaps one could say the more exciting part of the model for manufacturing improvement and so forth. But the way we look at it is that without that digital blanket that our system provides, the robots can only do so much unless it's in a very steady state manufacturing environment where there's not a lot of flux or change in what's being produced. And that's where we really shine, is the high mix, highly adaptable type of discrete manufacturing. So not when you're building the same thing without any permutations for 12 months. Our system can certainly operate in that environment, and it does, but where the real value comes is where you do have that automation layer that needs to respond to, even in the worst case, to a single piece flow situation where every unit going down the production process is unique. So we look at there being a critical synergy between the robots and the automation layer and this manufacturing operations management software layer. They're not mutually exclusive, certainly, and I do think they're actually dependent upon each other, in that our system can only reach its full potential if it is connected to the automation layer, such as your site typically covers.
Yeah, you made me think of a couple of interesting concepts that people have taught me, I suppose, introduced me to in manufacturing. One is flexibility, and the other is I think it's either called mass customization or run of one or something. The production of one single item. It's the same thing. Customization to a point where you're making unique items. Did you say that is something that your software already does, or you're sort of building towards that?
Actually, no, it's something we're a bit proud of, actually, is that we do think that there's a sea change going on in the manufacturing world. And it's, some say it's actually related a bit to COVID, in that there is a consumer and market expectation now that products be customized, or personalized is a term that's becoming more common. So, I often say to folks I'm speaking with that, Henry Ford, that the joke about him saying you can have the Model T in any color you like as long as it's black. We believe that we've become conditioned that to have low cost products at volume, you need to build them at volume on the Henry Ford-esque type line, and nothing can change. And personalization has been considered to be the enemy of economy when it comes to product cost and production efficiency. The market is no longer tolerating that. Now people expect them to be able to, the first generation was when you bought a laptop and you could go online to the website of, say, Dell or whomever, and you could specify up to 50 different permutations, like I want different memory in there, I want a different size display. We got used to that. But effectively, we're also accustomed to that with buying cars. You put all the options in you want and so forth. But when you think about it, that's what's typically called configured order. So the production control system merely has to modify production only that swap this part number in and swap this other one out, and so forth. It's not as simple as steady state manufacturing where nothing changes, but it is relatively simple. It's going to another level now where the customers want to actually modify the physical attributes of the product, not just the part numbers loaded into the final product. And that becomes much more complicated. So circling back to your original question, that is often called mass personalization, mass customization, and single piece flow, because now you're in a model where you imagine the difficulty of this. You have to have the software platform running production that's integrated to the robots in the process has to be able to literally take a marketing order or the customer order for a single unit that customer wants and be able to modify the assembly process, the route, the production programs, everything for each individual unit, even to the point where parts being installed might be finished differently, cut to different sizes, and so forth. So you literally, the reason it's called single piece flow is that you literally have a unique item being produced next to another completely unique item that might never ever be produced again in that production run. It's an incredibly complicated digital task to do that at any kind of volume. And if you're building bespoke items in the past, you might just throw a lot of people at the problem, but your costs go up. Now everybody wants economy of production, but also that personalization, which, as I said, seem to run counter to one another, and traditionally they have. But with our platform, we've actually made that an out-of-the-box capability, whereas before you really would have to hire an army of integrators and custom software people to build something that could handle that for your particular product. It now can be done with off-the-shelf software such as ours. And as best we know, nobody else has gotten to that level of adaptability yet with an off-the-shelf product.
Very interesting. I think it's possible that because you approach the building of the software from the design department as a starting point, maybe that's what's helped, because that is what it's all about at the end of the day. At the end of the process, the customization happens for a lot of these companies. And I read about a year or two ago, Mercedes was using more human workers to do the customization of its cars because customers wanted certain things, and only the human workers were able to do it. But that might be still the case. Even robots are maybe physically unable to do the customizations. But to a certain extent, obviously, customization, personalization, as you call it, is possible with robots. And I'm trying to think, though, because I have less, obviously, no manufacturing, well, very little. I used to work in a tailoring factory many years ago in my teens. And I know that customization happens with T-shirts, for example, these days. Everybody likes to have a customized T-shirt. And yeah, you mentioned Dell, how you can configure certain things. Maybe that's not quite personalization, but what are the other examples that you can think of, the industries or the products? I've seen Nike and maybe Adidas as well. They've done 3D printed trainers where they personalize each one for that individual customer. What are the other examples for somebody who doesn't know, like myself? There's a certain example. What are the examples of products that maybe there is a kind of demand building up, and it's kind of inevitable that it will happen for them? Because I don't see a lot of personalization in mass manufactured products at the moment anyway.
That's very interesting you say that, because you're not alone in the belief that there aren't a lot of those out there. I am actually on a weekly basis surprised by the applications I hear coming in with customers buying our system that are mass personalization related, because sometimes you don't even realize it. I'll give you two examples. I think we all know home automation and so forth is a growing market. One of our customers, a division of their company, makes smart window coverings, the smart roller shades, curtains, things of that nature. Every single unit, as you can imagine, is completely bespoke in that situation. The width of the shade. For architectural applications in commercial buildings, sometimes I was amazed by this, the position of the stitch line, if it's a very, very long roller shade, is specified by the architect to land at a particular vertical height in the building. So the fabrics used, the length of the roller, there basically isn't anything in that product that isn't specified by the end customer or the architect or designer. So that factory very rarely builds two things that are identical. And they wanted to bring high volume efficiency to that kind of a, frankly, very difficult product. that is single piece flow, and our product did. Another, so you might not even think of that. The customer is constantly putting in the parameters and ordering that shade, and it arrives. They really don't think about how incredibly difficult it is to run an operation like that, to make that shade for them. Another example that we probably all encounter one time or another is custom cabinetry, furniture. Nowadays, before you would, well, certainly IKEA has us used to just buying the size cabinets, and it is what it is, and you deal with that size. But in different types of cabinetry, the consumer actually wants to absolutely specify everything about those cabinets, down to the surface finish, the painting, and the sizes and dimensions of the cuts and so forth. We can control that with an out-of-the-box solution too, where that is literally a single piece, fully personalized product. And the examples they're becoming more common. The issue that we, I guess you could say, are grappling with, and we feel like we're a bit of we're evangelizing this, is that it has been assumed in the past that the only way to handle that kind of production with any automation is, as I mentioned, a lot of custom software. But that's no longer the case. So when we encounter these customers with these difficult processes, frankly, that they typically are quite elated that there's something they can simply buy off the shelf and very rapidly get to the point where it's increasing the economy of production, but they are still providing that personalization to their customers.
I find that difficult to quite square, actually, the idea that you can keep costs low and yet customize to, personalize to even. So, without really knowing the software in depth and using it and seeing it being used, you can't really show me that that's the case, if you like. But we will go to your website in a minute. And maybe at least see a few things about screenshots of the software. But tell us about the software again itself. I know we talked about it at a high level in terms of what it can do, but what can you liken it to? I mean, I've heard of enterprise resource planning software, and the ones I've seen are the interface is very well. It's basically a load of lists in the different sections and lists and more lists. I don't think I've seen manufacturing execution software, but I imagine it's more or less the same as the ERP ones that I've seen. Describe your software and how sort of what you've done to make the maybe user interface more intuitive or something. I imagine that's what you've done, because if you came from a design standpoint, if you started off from a design standpoint, those are the kind of things you probably would have done. That's my assumption, if you like.
Well, it is, and you're right, ERP systems can be a little thick with the lists and the text-based information and so forth. Because they are and continue to cater to a different customer user. If you think about it, there are folks in the office. The ERP system is primarily on the business side, so those folks have traditionally been okay with that kind of interface. On the shop floor, because I used to be a manufacturing engineer, and actually our other co-founder was as well, we knew from the very beginning that if we didn't create a user environment on the shop floor that was intuitive and non-threatening, but also very rich and interactive for shop floor operators, it would not be received very well. And the number one barrier to effective getting value out of an MOM platform like ours, in my opinion, is shop floor operator adoption, enthusiastic adoption. If they do not adopt the solution, the corporation can never get maximum value out of it, because there'll be cultural resistance, the change management problems, all of that happens. So we put, some might say, an inordinate amount of emphasis on our shop floor interface and interfaces in general. So we've even gone to the level where they are highly graphical. So to put a tangible example on it, in other systems, when you collect quality data against a product, you are faced with a list. And the operator is then faced with this list of all the parts, and possibly part numbers or item numbers on the drawing or whatever it is. And they have to go down the list and they say, okay, this one has this defect. And then the list cascades and it says, well, it's a paint defect or something of that nature. We've done away with that by using the CAD data. So we present the actual 3D model of the product that the operator has in front of them. They click on the area or the item in that model and say that is the defect with it. So it's very intuitive. I mean, you could get someone with almost no training and put them in front of the portal, and they would be able to start logging quality defects. And that's the advantage of a good user interface like that. And that's just one example of many in our system, as we believe, is that it makes it easier for the operator and improves adoption, as I said. The other side is data integrity. When you're expecting line operators who have 1,000 units going in front of them a day and to deal with these lists and non-intuitive interfaces, the data integrity they're collecting will naturally degrade. There's just no two ways about it. With our system, the simplicity of the data collection and the intuitive nature of it actually increases the quality of the data you're getting, which then comes through the analytics and so forth. So we do take interface very seriously, but we also realized, this was years ago when we designed our next generation interface, that if we got 50 of our customers in a room in a focus session, and we asked them, with our prior generation product, would say, what do you think of the shop floor interface for this function? Half the room would say it was too rich, it was scaring the operators. The other half would say there wasn't enough data in that screen. So our solution to that was to make the shop floor interface completely configurable by the manufacturing engineers. So they can actually tailor the interface layout and information density to what they think that particular station or line operator can best accommodate. So really, there is no limit to what you can do. You can have a single giant screen with a picture on it and a couple buttons, or you can have an extremely dense screen with tons of user controls and analytics and all sorts of things in it, and everything in between, and every operator can have something different. But the beauty of it is there was no coding involved. This is all done with drag and drop. Any manufacturing engineer, no software coding knowledge needed or anything like that. And they can literally build interfaces to suit for their own production support.
Okay. I'd like to see a few screenshots. Maybe we can look on the website in a minute, but just before I do, a quick question. Is it expensive, your software, to use, or how does it work? Is it subscription based, or how do you get to use it?
The question, is it expensive? It's definitely one of those in the eyes of the beholder. So we have designed the offering so that because we started as a very small company, and we got to where we were, frankly, by very small manufacturers that were trusting us and so forth. And we've never forgotten that we need to honor that market as we went up market. So our pricing model is such that if you are a manufacturing firm that has 40, 50 operators in production, single site, you can get into a basic MES, MOM solution for production tracking and a little bit of quality collection at a price point that virtually any of them would find palatable. When you go up to a 20 manufacturing site enterprise, obviously the costs are a lot greater there, but our pricing model scales to accommodate both ends of the spectrum and everything in between. And you asked about subscription versus perpetual. The great majority of our customers opt still for perpetual licensing. So they purchase the system, and then there's a software assurance contract per year for any and all upgrades and support and so forth. We do offer a subscription model, and we actually offer both models to our customers. So you can go either way.
Okay, I just want to put to you a question that my colleague Tom Cutler emailed me. So he was just, and from my own personal knowledge as well, he's said, he's mentioned terms like MOM versus MES and QMS. Now, MES is manufacturing execution software, but right. I don't know what the other ones are. Quality, must be for quality, but MOM versus MES, QMS. What does he mean by that? And can you explain? Can you answer it?
No, forgive me for throwing the acronyms around. If you
no,
allow
it's
me
fine.
to speak, I can speak an acronym continuously for an hour if I had to.
I'm sure the audience understand. It's just I don't always retain things in my brain.
Well, perhaps the audience doesn't actually, because it is a topic of frequent discussion. The analysts use different acronyms sometimes and so forth, but I can. MES is a bit manufacturing execution systems, the software, to control production execution primarily. That is an older acronym. It is still used a great deal. In fact, I would say 70% of the customers I speak to at first are still using that term. It's a comfortable term. It's a reasonable term for what these systems do. MOM is manufacturing operations management software. It was a term, I think, that came about because MES started, it developed a perception that it was too narrow in definition. And I think that's a reasonable assertion, that it is too narrow, because people thought of it mainly, as I said, of you track the products from station to station, you do some route control, and you might collect some quality. But MES was generally considered to not do a lot more than that. MOM then expanded to a great number of other functions that operations needs. Like I mentioned, shop floor material control could be in there. You have the analytics coming in. Some would put IoT in it, although seldom is that done, but it was a matter of functional expansion. Also asset management, certification control, and you could go on and on about the functions. That the MOM is a much broader suite of capabilities that manufacturing operations would want out of a software platform. And then there's QMS, and your guess was correct. Q stands for quality. It's quality management system. That is a whole other software market in and of itself, but we and many others believe that elements of QMS need to be in MOM. So to us, and our system does have an entire QMS system embedded in it. So to us, QMS needs to be part of MOM, because the MOM system is managing quality collection, repair, analytics around process quality, and all that business. So it's logical to put the things like corrective action, preventive action, non-conformance management, all of that should be part of the operations platform. Not everybody agrees with that, but our customers certainly do. I hope that was somewhat understandable, because I forgive me that the acronyms and the different product segments they get very complicated.
Well, my opinion is that was the clearest explanation of some acronyms that I've asked anybody about. I forget acronyms. It's only when I've heard them maybe thousands of times then it starts sinking in. I just imagine that I'll never need to use them again, but they always crop up. But yeah, Tom also asked me to ask you about Industry 4.0. But what you've said, all the things that you've said, it's implicit that Industry 4.0 is the platform or ecosystem within which your software thrives, or maybe even requires Industry 4.0. And just for the audience, new members of the audience that might not know, Industry 4 is a term. It is to describe connecting everything digitally, the machines through sensors connected to the computers, and on the computers you might have software that runs software like yours, and artificial intelligence and so on. And the idea is to make the whole of industry more efficient. And it has done so over the past few years. We've published many stories about how essentially how pleased most people are when they go down that route of digitalization and Industry 4.0. But what's your, obviously, you would know more, but what's your take on it, and what's your understanding, or how does Aegis fit into this? Is it sometimes I think the companies like yours exist because of the Industry 4.0 landscape that's now now emerged?
Well, this is a topic that's dear to my heart, and I just actually wrote an article about it, because Industry 4.0, and it came out of Germany as a concept, and I thought from the very beginning, I thought it was brilliant, and it was something that was a long time coming, in that someone needed to say that we needed a step function, in industry, the industrial revolutions, we needed another one. So at its core, that I thought was great, because it got people thinking, and I think we owe them a great debt, that it got people thinking that the advent of real digital capacity and the technology to digitize factories was here. We need to leverage it. Then I feel it went a little off the rails, because yes, the connection of the cyber physical devices, as you described, to these platforms and so forth, the IIoT thing, getting data from and back to every single device and asset in the factory, that is a part, that's an enabler, a prerequisite to getting to the benefits of Industry 4.0. So what I feel is that Industry 4.0 started as a goal or a mission to achieve in terms of benefits of a maximally efficient, adaptable production environment. And then it got tied up in the IoT thing. And now I go into meetings with executives sometimes where they actually open by saying, I don't want to hear the term Industry 4.0, which I think is a shame, because, and they articulate why. They say, because its meaning has been so confused and diluted now, I'd like to just talk about what values we're looking to get. And that's a shame, because the Industry 4.0, as I said, as a goal was great, is maximize the efficiency and adaptability of a production environment by using digital technology. Really, if I were to throw a definition out like off the cuff, that would kind of be closest to what I might come up with, that I think would, if we had kept to that, rather than kind of contaminating it with all these different ideas as to what it is to different people, it would have been better. I do think we have the opportunity to kind of re-seize that and get back to it, because as you said, it's true. Our entire corporate purpose and the product purpose is to enable what we thought was the original vision of Industry 4.0, that adaptable, highly efficient factory by using digitization. So to us, we look at it ourselves as that vehicle the customer can use to get to the benefits of Industry 4.0.
I totally agree with you. I think it's a wonderful articulation of the phases of the Industrial Revolution, if you like. If you want to consider the whole thing one big Industrial Revolution, but the idea of reducing them to 4 phases. And now we were, at the time it was articulated by the Germans, I believe it was probably someone from Bosch or something, one of the biggest companies there. Yeah, it's a very interesting and very clear and actually quite easily understandable sort of concept, which I think allowed people, it clears your mind when somebody articulates it like that. It sort of gives you a sense of place, you know where you are, you know what the landscape's like, so you can then know how what you're doing fits into your company, your factory, your operation, and so on. Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's from a journalistic point of view, these are things that one can appreciate very much. So yeah, let's. I keep saying we're going to go to the website, but I wanted to just before we go there, I've been sent a press release about Aegis having been selected by L3 Harris Technologies, which is a company, I believe, based in America. And they have selected your software platform to be used for 20 manufacturing locations with over 5,500 users. So you mentioned it in passing before in one of your answers that your software is capable of doing that. And obviously this is a specific case where it's being used or will be used. I don't know if you know about this particular development, but what can you say about it?
I certainly know about this one. Yeah, it's really we're very proud to be part of their enterprise at the level that we are now. We actually have had, that company is a very large enterprise. It's a product of a relatively recent merger between 2 other very large enterprises. And we were our software was being utilized in 9 sites across the two enterprises prior to this. So we know them quite well, and they're great partners, and we're honored that we're now going to be spreading out basically throughout the rest of the enterprise. And what is so gratifying about this is that it's proof to us and to the market, I hope, that what we've been talking about in this entire session, which I've enjoyed a great deal, is that you can have a singular platform that can adapt to an unbelievable variety of production and product types. And why I say that in the L3Harris context is they are a remarkable enterprise in terms of the scope of what they actually manufacture. So here's a single enterprise that's doing everything from semiconductor foundry, so literally making the die for the products, up to circuit cards, to boxes, like for defense communication boxes, which have tons of electronics in them, but then are an assembly, up to large scale defense machinery and so forth, to avionics, and then all the way up to remarkable systems like remanufacturing aircraft, like upgrades and so forth, and RMA work on our aircraft, and then all the way to space mirrors and satellites. So it's if you were to take a single enterprise and imagine high-tech anything that you could think of building, they have a hand in it. Now, you can imagine an enterprise like that, especially one that is a bit of, has gone through some consolidation and acquisitions and so forth. The number of different systems they were using to digitally control those kinds of different types of production was significant. And there's value to an enterprise like that of finding a system that will be a single code-based system, one solution, very low customization, that is able to support all those sites doing those myriad different things on one platform. And that's why there's a lot of reasons we're proud of it, but the fact that FactoryLogix, our solution, can actually do that in such an enterprise is testament to what we consider, MOM as an off-the-shelf, highly adaptable solution it doesn't need to be heavily customized to wrap itself around supporting so many different types of production.
Yeah, I've just noticed that L3Harris is an $18 billion annual revenue company with 47,000 employees. No minnow in any sector, I suppose. All right, let's go to the website and have a quick click around, and maybe you can guide us through it. So here we are on the website here. Yeah, so I wanted to see some screenshots. I don't know if you have any Oh, there we are. That's a screenshot of the software, I presume.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a shop floor interface that, as I mentioned, the manufacturing engineer actually laid out in that particular case. The top bar where you see some buttons, all those buttons were specified by the engineer by drag and drop. So it's actually like if you start with a PowerPoint slide and you drag things onto it. It's no more difficult than that, except these things are active. So the right-hand side, he or she said, okay, I want the 3D model there. These are some pictures and so forth. And the left, clearly they indicated they wanted to have the step-through instructions, as we call them. So as the operator clicks through their operations, it would actually change the view that they're seeing and actually step them through an interactive walkthrough of how to assemble that product.
Obviously, your software. Just to recap, how would you categorize the software then? Is it manufacturing operations management software? Is this what it is, or is it more than that?
In our model, it's a little bit beyond the MOM definition envelope. So because we've always constructed our system on what these days would be called an IIoT backbone. So all the data acquisition from the machines and so forth is also handled by our system, because in our view, we had two, and this is going back to 1997, we had two opinions about how a system like this really needs to be constructed. And at the time, no one and actually for about a decade later, no one was even thinking of such a thing. And the two fundamental tenets we had were, we have to build it on the CAD data. To have a factory execution system of any kind, we just believed it was obvious that you had to rotate it around the CAD design, and that all the data coming in from production should be related to the design of that which you're building. That has become something now that many companies are acting like is a new thing with the digital thread, but we just thought it was obvious that's how you should build the system. So we've been doing that for a very long time. The other part we thought was that getting the data from humans interacting with a portal is one thing, but you also need to get the data from the factory assets, the robots, the process machines and testers and so forth. So we've it's been since 2000, we have built a very, very high speed, efficient IoT system that basically connects to, we have adapters for hundreds and hundreds of machines, and we're building more every day to get all the data from the machinery that humans can't provide into our back end. So that's really what is beyond what most of the MOM definitions would say are important. And we do everything MOM says, but then beyond with the IoT.
Mm. And obviously your company is called Aegis Software, but this software screenshot we're looking at, the software, the application is called FactoryLogix. Is that right?
That's the platform, yes. The entire product is called FactoryLogix, of which it has, well, we talked about how smaller companies can afford to get into it. It is highly modular. It is literally one solution. That's actually another differentiator of our company is when you look at offerings from others and you see oftentimes you see a very impressive functional matrix of what it can do. What you're looking at, though, is the product of many, many different acquisitions and different tools. Aegis is very proud that when a customer buys our system, every single thing they're buying, we wrote. So it is literally one platform on one data model, which actually makes a very, very big elegance difference in the deployment of the system, the analytics, because of the fact that we're built on an ontology of our own. There's some significant advantages of purchasing and going with a system that actually is a platform, and ours is.
If you don't mind me saying, I mean, I'm looking at these white panels. I'm looking at the modular individual sections, or not plugins, but the modularity of it, I suppose.
Yep.
These are the different sections of or functionalities of the software. But if you don't mind me saying, you're a relatively new company compared to the 100-year-old German giants, for example, and even in America, you've got very, very old industrial companies who, been very innovative through the times. The whole assembly line and all that kind of stuff. There's lots of innovations, especially in the automotive trade, that have happened in the software trade or business or sector. I'm wondering if you have an advantage over established rivals. There are big software companies out there, in Europe as well as America, I imagine. I'm wondering if yes, a lot of them do acquire companies, and you have mentioned this, and you're built from the ground up, if you like, and it's all one flow of products or functionalities coming out of that one single trajectory. But is there other advantages that maybe you have that you could maybe use to gain advantage and maybe overtake in some sectors of the business of industry, really? I mean, software has become so important that it's almost as important as the manufacturing of the thing itself. The manufacturing, the actual physical activity itself.
Yeah, well, we think we are actually. Like, for example, that L3 Harris release, I think, is a tangible evidence rather than me just claiming it. Is that deal is obviously a very, very large software deal that one would think that you'd have to be one of the mega companies in order to do that, and that's not the only one. So we have, and the reason you ask, well, how, I guess in a way you asked, how are we pulling it off? The reason is there's a few aspects to it. I think that there is a very big difference between a company that was founded and is led by people who actually were working in production, engineers. This is all we do. All Aegis does is try to help our customers digitize their factories and be more productive. We are not a division of a large company that makes, trains or aircraft and so forth, and then just thought they need to get into software for profitability reasons. And there is a significant difference in innovation, because when you're a large company, you have certain advantages, but one of the things you do start losing is that innovation. You start chasing buzzwords instead of actually listening to the customers. The evolution of FactoryLogix is, while we would like to take credit for all the great things we think it does, our customers are constantly our best source of where do we need to go in 10 years? What do we need to do? I mean, frankly, 90% of what the system does was at one time or another a customer telling us, our business needs to be able to achieve this in the future. What can you do with this platform to get us there? So I just think what that's resulted in is, frankly, just a much better put together solution that can go in and deliver time to value faster than anyone else on the market. So when you have that kind of a value proposition and we can prove it, that's how we've been successful against very much larger software providers, because you raise a very valid point. And when we are asked that by customers, when we're trying to earn their trust, what we love most when we're engaged with a customer is if they will allow, or they will guide their selection process towards what we call proof. Get the vendor to literally show you what they're claiming they can do. If we can get to that point with a customer, we generally do very well, because I think one thing we grapple with is, at this stage in business development in the world, big software platform providers do not have the greatest reputation with the market. I mean, let's face it. There's a general belief that they oversell things and so forth. So what we have, Aegis is absolutely adamant that we do not oversell our capabilities. And as I said, we like asking the customer, please make the vendors you're looking at prove what they're saying. And that's really where we shine, because we literally can stand the system up in a demonstration in a few days and demonstrate every claim we've made. And that's something that, frankly, others just have trouble doing.
Yeah, a pop-up came up on your website saying watch intro video of Aegis, and I couldn't find it again. It disappeared. I couldn't find it again. I just did a Google search and found a video of Aegis. I don't know if it's out of date. I mean, it's from January this year. It shouldn't be out. I'd imagine it's not out of date. Is this the right one though? Is this an Aegis video, or
we have several of them. This one was developed actually by our European division. As you said, I think it was released somewhere in January. It's a general overview of our folks in Europe built this one. So yeah, it's one of them.
Right. Yeah, okay. Well, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you. I mean, I don't know, as I say, a lot about software, but then I don't know a lot about anything. But the software, this has been an interview that I've been able to follow a bit more and been a bit more engaged, because I mean, like many people, I have ideas about hobbies like for furniture making or some such things, architecture. You were talking about that, the idea of building things. There's things called, I'm sure you know, modular construction, I think, and yeah, that kind of thing. So it intrigued me that you said that there was so much customization and personalization, modularity, the way they're talking about mass manufacturing houses to I'd imagine that they'd all look the same, but that's not necessarily the case if you've got customization capabilities at your disposal. So it's very interesting. That part's very interesting as well. That industry, actually, construction, is probably the least automated, most old-fashioned industry around. Yep. It's kind of been mentioned a few times while I've been reading and talking to people that it's become more and more expensive over time and less productive. So that's probably ripe for automation or some kind of updating, but I don't see how it can be done. What you're describing is kind of, from a newbie's point of view, the idea of customization or personalization while keeping costs low enough to sort of carry on with it is kind of difficult to wrap my head around, if you know what I mean. So it'd be interesting to see how that if more architects take it up and use your software. I don't know is there a particular industry that you concentrate on or you like yourself? I mean, I saw a whole load of industries listed on the website. Is there one that's more dynamic at the moment for you, noticeably?
Well, in terms of our greatest market share is in electronics assembly, up to when the electronic card goes into a box of some sort, a product. That's market share wise. The most dynamic right now is aerospace and defense. The regulatory pressures, the desire to more fully automate the reason why our system is so compelling in that segment, I think, to a degree, is because that market is not typically such that you're high volume and you're building the same thing all the time. There's a lot of flux, product change, and frankly, it is personalized, some of those products. So so we do quite well in that space, and then medical devices as well. But generally, we do focus on any kind of discrete manufacturing. So as mentioned, cabinets, furniture making, those automated window shades, so all sorts of different segments. It's one of the most fun parts of our business is we are every day when the reports come in about a new opportunity we have to help a customer, and you see their application. Sometimes they're really amazing. You just don't typically think of those types of manufacturing, but it's just a vast market that we serve, and it's really fun.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm gonna just play this video while I ask you for. Is there anything that I forgot to ask you about, or maybe you'd like to add that I didn't ask about?
I think not. This has been a great pleasure, and I think you asked. I appreciate the questions very much. I think if I were to babble on anymore, it might be too much. You got me to cover a great deal. I hope I didn't bore your audience.
No, I'm sure you didn't. I tend to babble on, even though I'm supposed to ask short questions. But yeah, it's just fumbling around for the right kind of question. I suppose that's what my problem is usually. But yeah, it's been a great pleasure talking to you, and hopefully we'll speak again. I'll follow the progress of Aegis and maybe even check out what the prices are, see if I can apply them to my own little hobbies and whatnot. So yes, thank you very much, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Send us an email at sales@roboticsandautomationnews.com to register for one of our many upcoming webinars. And if you'd like us to host your webinar, we have a range of options, including long-term lead generation packages and marketing campaigns. We look forward to hearing from you soon.